Welcome back, periodic listeners, to our part 2 of gender identity.
Yeah, we turns out we had a lot to say.
So it turns out we had a lot more to say than we thought we were going to, yes.
No, it's
Which is fair. It's
awesome.
a huge topic, totally. So the last thing that we were talking about was that when you're at a point of what was it again? I just finished saying that. Oh my gosh.
Basically what I was saying was this unfortunate trend of if you've always been in a place of privilege, then anytime you're met with full equality, it feels like almost persecution. It feels like you've lost something. Basically, that old-fashioned idea that equality is it's like a I'm trying to remember the exact thing. It's like it's like sharing a pie. It's like you're allowed to share a pie. Like someone getting a piece of pie doesn't mean that you're not also getting the piece of pie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying it wrong. I know for a fact, but I don't remember the exact wording. But yeah, it's just this idea that like just because someone is finally getting some equal footing, say if we're still talking about representation in media, just because people are getting more representations doesn't mean you're losing your representations. It just means that other people are getting more after having not had any.
Oh, for sure. And the amount of movies and series that are specifically just straight
Yeah,
is ridiculous. Like
it's the majority.
it's exactly. So then it's like, why can't we just have a little smidgen?
Just
We
a
just
little bit.
we just want a little bit.
We want a little bit. Like we want a little bit without like we want like going back to the idea of like how so many shows are canceled. Like we want the opportunity to see stories grow and we want to see a diverse range of stories. I mean, I know like even in times where we used to have more LGBTQ plus movies, like I'd like some rom-coms in there. I'd like some comedies. It doesn't always have to be dramatic and tragic. Like
Yeah.
we've done the Brokeback thing, which nothing against Brokeback. It's an amazing movie, but like I do enjoy a happy ending for
Yeah.
queer characters sometimes. Like that's always fun.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it
It's
doesn't have to
like
be all medieval time movies or you know,
that's the other thing. Like
where
a lot of stuff is so it's like very period based. It's like
and
give me
even
my
with
rom-coms.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And even I noticed with like Witcher, both times that I noticed it, it was a gay couple and then a lesbian couple. Both
Mm-hmm.
times it was like just hookups.
Yeah.
They weren't actually like in a relationship. They weren't having children. They weren't, like you didn't actually see a life with them. And one of them did want to start a life with the other man.
Mm-hmm.
Something came in between the way, but he did even tell his brother and I was waiting for the moment where the brother was going to be like but he didn't. Like it would just obviously it was just during that era where they also just like understood, and that's what the script writers went along with, which I thought
Yeah.
was cool. But there was no like backlash from his brother the king. He was a prince, and he didn't backlash at all, which I thought was neat because I
Yeah.
was waiting for some backlash, and
Yeah.
there was none.
It's the beauties. It's the beauty of a fantasy. And it pisses me off when people are like when they start critiquing fantasy because it's like, well, that's not realistic. It's like, dude, there's dragons. Like it's fantasy. Like let me have healthy queer relationships in medieval time. Like that's part of the reason I loved Willow. Like Willow was amazing because you had
Oh,
these two women, like it was literally a princess and a knight, and they were both female, beautiful love story. And it was this amazing fantasy where like there was absolutely no persecution of either of them for being queer. And it was amazing. And that getting canceled, it will just forever hurt me deep in my soul.
totally.
And like not only was it canceled, but uh it was a Disney Plus show.
Mhm.
and Disney Plus took it off the platform.
Wow.
They took it off as a tax write-off. So the only way you're going to be able to see it now is if you happen to have some strategically downloaded illegal versions of the episodes on your computer hidden away. You know,
Should have known that before.
hypothetically, hypothetically,
hypothetically.
hypothetically, hypothetically, totally not on my computer, but hypothetically.
So if you don't mind me asking you, how old were you when you decided to actually, I guess, come out of your shell?
I was in, it wasn't my first year of I did my first year of university like right out of high school. I did like at 18, and then I left university because I realized that the major I was an English major. It's like that wasn't what I wanted to do, but then I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, so I ended up taking some time off, and I returned to university in 2016, where I was in women and gender studies. And it was during that time that I kind of clued in, like, hold up,
Wait a second.
it's like, wait, pause. Oh, it's like that moment you have, like that aha moment of like, okay, yeah, no, that's not straight.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is that I was apparently the last person to realize this.
You're hilarious. That's
actually, no, it's literally like when I decided I was going to like come out to my parents, it's like, I am not straight, I am bisexual, I like my gender, I like other genders. But I was a drama kid, so I'm very dramatic. So I had a very specific like idea of what was going to happen. Like I was going to sit them down, I was going to like lay it all out on the table, like I am bisexual, and then it was going to be this big beautiful swelling music, we were all going to cry, it was going to be this big beautiful thing. I had a very specific script. So I sat them down and was like, I'm ready. It's like, all right. It's like, mother, father, I am not straight, I also like women. And I paused for effect, because you have to. You got to pause for effect.
Yeah.
Which they sneak in there and they're like, yeah? Like, was this a secret? And it was like, secret. Like, this is new information. They're like, no, it's not. It's like, was it supposed to be a secret? It's like, well, apparently it was to me. And they're like, honey, no, you ran a Natalie Dormer Tumblr account. Like, you used to wax poetry about how you wanted to run away with her. Like, we just kind of assumed. And it was like, oh, you couldn't have let me in on this. Like, apparently you've known since I was a teenager. I didn't find out till my 20s.
That's so funny. You're like, wow, that would have been nice if somebody would have told me.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's funny when they're all like, was it supposed to be a secret? And it's like, well, apparently not to you. Apparently it was to me. You could have like clued me in somewhere. But yeah, that was that moment. And I mean, they've been, my parents are hippies, so they were like awesome from the get-go. But like my mom even admitted later, like, or she admitted to me a couple of years ago, like, I thought that this was like your way of easing me into you telling me you were a lesbian, because she was still very early in like learning about sexualities and gender expression, all that. So she said, like, I realize now, like, okay, no, I fall under that banner of just queer, pansexual, bisexual. Like, I tend to say bisexual mainly because it's easier and more people tend to know about it. Plus, I prefer the color of the flags. I'm willing to admit that very superficial thing. I like the flag. But she said, like, yeah, I thought this was you, like, easing me into admitting you were a lesbian. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
It's a nice flag.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I was like definitely into my 20s. And that's why I think it's really good when we have kind of more, I hate calling them family focused just because that seems to mean a very different thing to some people, but like shows that you can watch with your family. Like, I like that we're including more and more gender identities and sexualities, because if I had had that growing up, I wouldn't have been the only person who didn't know.
Oh, exactly. And then for me, I mean, I've always just dated men, and I'm a very girly girl. So people just assume, oh, well, there's no way. But all my friends knew. It was, it wasn't a secret with all my friends. But it was just one of those things that I had yet to accept because I was too scared to come out to, say, my family and to make that like well known. Um, but yeah, being such a girly girl and being like, oh, well, I'm gonna be with a guy and he's gonna take care of me and he's gonna be like this and like that, and like what my family thought was going to be my life, you know. But like one of my girlfriends brought up to me, she's like, Sarah, you were too headstrong. Like I am very headstrong, that it would take a very, very specific man to be with me because I'm just so blunt and I'm just so straight to the point and I'm so strong that like, you know, I kind of hurt. I don't mean to hurt people's feelings, but sometimes I will, and I don't mean to. But like my girlfriend said to me, she's like, I feel like with your headstrongness that you'd be more suited with a woman, which I thought was very interesting way that she did put it. But being in the relationship that I am now, I can kind of see where she's coming from, because you're able to have like these open conversations that say like with a man I've been missing.
Yeah, and it's a very different experience going from dating one gender to dating any other gender. Like it's a very different experience. But if you can hear my cat in the background, he agrees.
But that is exactly it. It is very different. And relating this back to what we were talking about, if I were to have been exposed to this type of variety for genders when I was younger, then maybe I wouldn't have came out when I was 28 years old.
Yeah.
You know?
That's the thing, is like growing up, we're exposed to, it's like, I'm assuming you're the same, like you watch a lot of like the Disney movies where you've got the strapping prince and the princess and they are all in love and married at the end of the movie, and that's just kind of what you expect is normal because that's all that you're seeing on your TV screen. So it's why it's so important to start not grooming, like some people like to say. I hate that word, but
it is a gross word, isn't it?
It's a gross word, and it's like, I hate, because it can absolutely be used in like context where it is like say an adult grooming a child, like as you should. So the fact that people are using it for like, oh well, you're grooming my child to like want to change body parts and stuff like that, it's like, just stop appropriating words. But
yeah also let's just like talk about for a second how people start to sexualize things once as soon as you come out. Like,
yes.
And you're just like, why are you sexualizing something that does not mean to be sexualized right now?
Exactly.
Like no matter what my sexuality is, so who I fancy.
I love it.
It's so good. Why does it now all of a sudden become weird for another person to be like say someone of the same gender to feel like, oh well, you're hitting on them now? And it's like, no. It's like, I can have guy friends, but I'm still interested in men, but I can have guy friends who I am not interested in whatsoever. Therefore, I can have girlfriends who I am, they're my best friends, but I would never even think of it like that.
Yeah.
It's like when family gets weird about your sexuality and also they get uncomfortable around you, and it's like, but your family, so that never changes anything.
Yeah.
So like, why are you suddenly offended?
Yeah. It's definitely one of the stereotypes of like bisexuality, where it's like, there's always the joke about how it's like, there is no friends, there's only prey. It's like I'm not a raptor, I'm not like a dinosaur. Like, I am not attracted to like every single man, woman, or other that I come across. Like, I definitely have a type. And
oh my god,
a lot of people get offended where it's, and that's another thing that's very common, where it's like, yeah, no, I'm not interested in you. Like, there's no need to be like fearful. And then they get offended. Well, it's like, well, why are you not interested in me? And it's like, well, your personality for one.
Because we're even having this conversation right now. This is exactly it.
Yes.
Oh my god,
yes.
That's so good.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Oh yeah, it's difficult, and people are like, oh well, why can't you pick one? And it's like, well, that's not how that works.
It's not how that works.
No.
Or like the idea that like once you're in a committed relationship, it's like, okay, you've chosen a side. It's like, nope.
No,
That's not how that works. I remember I'm trying to remember who it was.
your cat just in the
Yeah.
background.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, if you hear yowling, it's just my cat. They're fine. But yeah, oh, it was Anna Paquin was doing an interview with, I don't remember who it was with, but because she's openly bisexual, and someone was asking her about that after she got married to Stephen Moyer, who identifies as man. And they were talking about like, oh, well, you used to be bisexual. And she's like, well, I still am. And they're like, yeah, but you're married to a man. She's like, yeah, I married my husband, but like that doesn't mean I'm less bisexual now. Like I fell in love with this person who happened to be a man.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like, I remember I had to write an essay in sexualities and television, which was a very fun class I took. But talking about how in the 90s there was an episode of Sex and the City where they talked about bisexuality as a stop to gay town. And it's like that. And that's that idea that like even my mom wasn't sure about at first, where it's like, well, this is like you dipping your toe in and then you'll hop in the pool once you've found that person, and then you'll just be gay. And it's like, no, nothing wrong with people who identify with bisexual and then realize like, actually, no, not actually bisexual, actually gay, or the other way around. That's the thing is like, once you like kind of determined a sexual, like sexuality, it's not like you're stuck in that forever. Like,
Oh,
you can flow, you can realize things later on, like, and
yeah.
that's 100% fine.
Yeah.
It's like, so
Nothing is concrete. And that's like
exactly,
something that we need to remember. And like,
bringing the word back, it is a spectrum. You can move around.
It is a spectrum.
Lots
Yes.
of flow.
Well, just like I believe in Taoism, which is a religion that's based around nature and how everything that moves with, say, the wind or with a river, and everything that's within its way is going to get shaped in a different way, or it's going to be moved until it's broken down, or it's going to be benefited and then grow stronger. And so nothing is consistent. Nothing will always stay as is. And everything is constantly changing and adapting to its elements.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why when there's such a issue about like, I don't want to talk too much about it just because as someone who's identifies as cisgender, like I will never have the like lived in experience, but people who do identify as transgender, when they talk about like, well, how dare you like be willing to let children like mutilate themselves to change genders? And it's like, okay, first of all, like no one's doing that. No child is getting gender reassignment surgery. Like everything that children do, whether it be hormones or anything like that, like that's all reversible. And I know there's a quote I've seen a few times by a parent of a child who's identifies as transgender. And someone was talking to them about pronouns, and they say like, I'd rather my child like switch around their pronouns a million times rather than have to eventually write that child's obituary. And it's like, that's at the base of it. It's like we let children and young people like experiment and learn how to express themselves, and you know what, things might change. And like, but the fact that they're able, like they should be allowed to safely and confidently explore all these things, because otherwise like the alternative is that they are forced to like hide parts of themselves away, and that's not healthy in the slightest.
Well, for example, in my own experiences, someone part of my family, when I did mention to said person that, you know, where I'm at right now, I was told to essentially keep my mouth shut and to not share it with the world, and to not be proud of who I'm dating now, and to just not tell anybody, and to keep it quiet. When if I was dating a man and if I was talking about him and I was excited about him, it would be a completely different story. But because I was going to embarrass myself, I was going to, make a fool of myself, and that I was going to ruin my reputation.
Oh no.
At 28 years old, being told these things, can you imagine if I was 17 and I came out and those were the reactions that I received.
Exactly. And that's the thing is like young people, like children, teens, young adults, like the idea that like I was so lucky. I knew for a fact, even in my dramatic like reveal to my parents, like I never at one point was scared that they weren't going to be accepting. So the idea that people can't say that is absolutely heartbreaking. Like where it's like the idea that the people who love you and the people you love, like having that fear that their love is conditional on your sexuality or your gender is like devastating. It's like, I just can't even imagine.
Well, their perspective on it is that they care about you so much that they want you to be able to keep it quiet because other people will be judgmental upon you for
which is unfortunately a very real fear, especially unfortunately nowadays.
Which is true. So they're trying to be protective and to care on you, and you know, they'll always love you. But in the same instance,
they don't love all of you.
There's something missing and you can tell. There's something that they're like, nah, I'm a little bit unimpressed with the fact that you chose to go this way. When at the same time, like, why do you care who I love?
Yeah.
As long as
also,
I love, as long as like, as long as that person treats me right, why is there an issue? Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's the thing is like, for so many of these things, whether it be sexuality, gender expression, any of that, like so many times it doesn't affect anyone else. So it's like, why are you so threatened by something that literally doesn't affect you?
Yeah.
Like, again, going back with like, why is giving people the right to like live happily? Like, why do you seem to think that's going to take away something from you?
Yeah. I can see where they're coming from in the sense that there could be lots of judgments coming from the rest of the world. But in the same instance, why would I hide my truth?
Exactly.
Because it's like, well, then what? I'm just keeping that inside and I'm holding that inside, and that doesn't help you grow.
No. It's the very, it's it's a lot with emotions as well, where it's like you could talk about it or you could do the typical millennial thing, which is bottle it up until you burst. And that's we're thankfully starting to realize that's not the healthiest way to go.
Oh,
so
thankfully. And then wrapping this all back around to mental health awareness. It's so important for us to be able to open up and being able to talk to others about the things that we're going through and how we're going to deal with it without judgment. You know, the without judgment part is so hard to find. And when you find those people in your life that don't judge you and you're able to talk to them openly about the things that you're going through, those are the people that you want to keep close, like near and dear, because that's, you know, and exactly too, like when we look at the way that people have perspectives upon us, it's so hard to not care about what people think, but it is such a true thing is to not care what people think. Because you look at actors and you know, celebrities and whatnot, and they're constantly having negative comments being said about them. And you look at their Instagram posts and people are just ripping them apart. And I'm sure that hurts them. But in the same instance, I'm sure it still hurts them, but they've been able to grow that backbone where it's like, okay, like I'm going to try to not let this hurt me.
It's like when you've been in the public eye for long enough, you have to build that backbone, because once your life is like fully exposed like that, people seem to take it as an opportunity. It's like, well, you're in the public eye anyway, meaning you now have to listen to my opinion about you.
Yeah, exactly. But so that's something that we can all take onto ourselves, is to the people that we don't care about, that don't mean anything in our lives, to not take their opinions to heart, but also the people who are in our lives that may not understand our perspectives and say maybe are a little bit older or they're not on the same page as us, to not take their perspectives as much to heart as well. But then those close-knit friends or those close-knit family members that have your back no matter what, those are the ones to focus your energy on. And when you need to talk about something, those are the ones to go to. or I mean vice versa, like I mean obviously being there for them when they need to talk to, so it can be like a mutual relationship, because you don't want to just be venting and venting to your friends
Yeah.
without being able to be there for them too, which is, I mean, mental health is so important, and I'm
Yeah.
so glad to be able to have this podcast to speak on it, and I'm so glad that like we've been able to have a couple podcasts here, and especially talking about gender identity and like sex, gender, sexuality, and you know, the 2S LGBTQIA plus community. It makes me so happy to have you here and to be able to have had this conversation, because I feel like this is going to be hopefully this will even just help one person who may be dealing with a similar scenario that one of us
Yeah.
has dealt with.
No, that's always the goal, is like whenever, like I know I've read quotes before talking about how it's like if you can be there and kind of be able to help even one person with any of the work that you're doing, it's worth it,
Totally.
because it so is. Like it doesn't need to be like, you don't need to change the entire world, but if you're able to change the world of one person,
Mm-hmm.
like then everything you do is worth it.
I agree completely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, thank you so much for being here today, Brianna. It was such a pleasure, and I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yes, no, thank you for inviting me, and I'm sorry for taking up so much of your time.
No, 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 I apologize. This has been
No,
great. I love how we just like we're like, oops, part two.
yeah. Yeah, no, it works well.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Okay, well, periodic conversation listeners and the compound community, thank you so much for being here today. And thank you for listening to my story and Brianna's, and just being a part of this new movement that I'm trying to start. Okay. Have a wonderful day, guys.